I tuned into Clyde Lewis's Ground Zero Radio last night, and there's a reason why, I don't listen anymore. And I'm not here, really, at this moment, to even attempt to be critical, which I really don't want to be, I want to be nice to Clyde and maybe connect with him again, but there are things that, frankly, I don't like. He can do whatever he wants. He's a free man, but he's on air in the city of my birth. So because of that, I care about what's on the air. And I want to put in my 2 cents to the people in the city of my birth. And I feel that, to a certain degree, although he's talented, he has a good radio voice, he's smart, brilliant on a level, but he doesn't know everything. And he seems to be falling into, unfortunately, somewhat of a right-wing echo chamber talking point with where he's taking his show. Because as well as I do, there's far more to know than what's being said there about fearing immigrants and terrorism and things of the like, which is where the audience is at. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, on radio shows like that, the situation was different. The elite can stage things even through their control of the politicians in Mexico, and maybe even their control of the cartels and more. They can manufacture things in a certain part of the country to be a certain way, to bring about a certain outcome, to cause a reaction. So what is happening here at the border down there has been foreseen. Even myself, I had concerns for over 10 years that there would be some sort of a battle at the Mexico-Texas border that may or may not involve Chinese troops on some sort of vacant or large plot of land, I suspect at the time. And I'm sure I mentioned this 10 years ago. I'll look for it, that it could maybe even be BLM land, but it would be land in which there would be some dispute, and maybe even the man down in Austin would play a role in sending his listeners down to some sort of a face-off situation, which would knowingly or unknowingly be a trap. So I'm just airing that now, throwing that out there. I'm also going to say that for years there's been fake news, I believe it's fake news, put out there by Steve Quayle and others that have put out false statements about China invading, leading me to suspect that they could be doing that deliberately. Why would people put out fake news about China about to invade across the Mexico-Texas border in 2003 or something to that effect, and then also to see a recycling of that in 2021? Some of you may remember that. In 2021, there was fake news saying that China was going to invade. Again, I took my warnings off the web for a few years. There were a few reasons for that. Felt like I was getting too close to the truth, and now that we're close to these potential events, it doesn't matter. I did some digging. I saw that my interview with Leon was already on archive.org. So what's the hiding for? Put it out there and put out the information that I have about the sun to help people understand that the elite are staging events because humans react a certain way. Not just when there's a geomagnetic storm, but also when there are these eclipses. I don't know scientifically exactly how we're affected by the eclipses. That's a little bit more complex. If you have some input, feel free to leave it down below. I have a book I checked out from the library. It's on eclipses. It's not very good. It just kind of goes on and on and on, but doesn't really get to the ancient views that the kings had about the eclipses being an omen or a time of war. So look at what happened in October leading to January. Massive sacrifice. And it's still going on. By the time we get to April 2024, there will be events, and the likelihood of an event blamed on an illegal immigrant or a terrorist or accused terrorist, or maybe even a disgruntled American, I think are higher than the norm. In the mainstream conspiracy movement, however, there is a heavy focus on the government going after the quote patriots. And I say the quote patriots. This word gets used too loosely. I used to be on what's called Patriot Radio, but how many of these people in the Patriot movement would see me as a patriot, being that I'm outside of their current politics? To be a patriot 10 years ago, you could be one and support Ron Paul. I drove around megaphoning in support of Ron Paul, and filmed on my YouTube channel, the RNC, and even megaphoned the police there about rigged elections and what they did to Ron Paul. Not that Ron Paul is an angel, and Rand Paul, of course, has done good things, and then Rand Paul is also part of the system. Again, for those of you that are listening, you need to understand. I think most of you get it, but there's also a purging happening with people that come in and they subscribe. There's always going to be people coming into this podcast shocked that I am nonpartisan. Hashtag nonpartisan. And to a certain degree, I am a Gnostic, even if I don't agree or subscribe to other Gnostic newsletters, content creators, nor Aeon Byte Radio, although he has some interesting things. That would be Miguel Connor. Point is, I'm nonpartisan. And I think for myself, and while there may be things that we agree on, and that's great, we should agree on some things, but we're not going to agree on everything. I think that it's backwards thinking for people in this world to expect others to view things politically, racially, or otherwise just like them. Because we've had a long time, folks, to be robots in the Matrix. And where did that get us? Where did that get us? Where did acting like a robot get us in this Matrix and in this world? It got us into a deeper state of slavery. And now, with the cell phone in everybody's hands, this uniform thinking is going to the next level. So my concern about this violence that's being allowed on Twitter, with Elon Musk knowing, I would say, how do you not know that that's going on? Twitter's changed rapidly, and there's even some people on the right that have spoken up and said, what's going on with Twitter showing snuff videos? There are people out there that don't realize that are defending Elon Musk, like in the comments of a recent video that I put out there. Right? He's popular with the right. And maybe popular with aspects of the left, because there's a lot of coverage of war crimes happening in Gaza. But he's a tool with close ties to China. And his deeper ties to certain politicians and or Trump are not actually out in the open. And that includes his likely ties to Alex Jones. Now, I've talked about Alex Jones being probably a more powerful figure than most of us understand. So we're going to see whatever types of deceptions come out of that man. But like I said, I had suspicions that there were some sort of in-game scenarios that he might be involved in. And maybe knowingly or unknowingly, but it's not outside the possibility that's knowingly, that he would deceive his audience as part of some agenda to lead them into something that they're not going to win. Whatever's coming with China and this war and possible invasion, I do believe that they are orchestrating it, but there are different perspectives on who's going to win. Are we actually going to end up speaking Chinese and conquered with our American way of life, and for many people, the Christian way of life being eradicated? And, of course, for others, Islamic, Jewish. See, Jewish, Islamic, Christian, they're all attacked in China. And yet all these Chinese slave goods, made, by the way, many of them made by the Uyghurs, and some of the food that we eat, like the fish that's sold at Kroger and Walmart, touched by the slaves in China. Got a book I mentioned a few times. I'll mention it again, along with the secondary book, so you can check this out and understand China is intertwined with the U.S. This is not an accident. This is happening. How I Survived a Chinese Re-Education Camp, a Uyghur woman's story. Okay? Came out last year. Surveillance State, Inside China's Quest to Launch a New Era of Social Control. Josh Chin and Lisa Lin. If you're intelligent, even if someone is not a conspiracy theorist or has partisan views, or works for the mainstream media or the Wall Street Journal, for that matter, just because they don't have the same views as you, doesn't mean that they're not intelligent, that they can't contribute a body of work that could even contribute to your worldview, albeit conspiratorial. Or something else. Spiritual. The conspiratorial and the spiritual go together like a yin and a yang, because it is spiritual to understand that there is a dark agenda that is steering world events and that we need to rise above it. It requires a certain amount of spirituality to understand the true conspiracy. Quote me there. Okay, it takes a certain amount of spirituality to see the true conspiracy. A lot of people can't because they are brainwashed. Fake conspiracies are in the land and arena of Pizzagate, Q, Soros being behind everything, and fake alien invasion stories. Often found at disclosed.tv, which deleted my videos and my discussions with Joel Skousen years ago. Jeez. Anyway, I've got a number of recordings that I did yesterday. I checked out a YouTube documentary from the library. It's so mainstream. It doesn't talk about the controversy. It was made in 2022. It's pure bullshit. I thought I would check it out just for, shits and giggles, as they say. I don't think I've ever used that phrase. Yeah. I didn't keep watching it. I shut that crap off, I was working at a place in Pagosa Springs, flipping burgers. Oh, and this woman's like, I'm complaining about what YouTube did to my channel, and the shadow banning, and the demonetization of high-ranking videos, reducing my income sharply. But because she had heard about the Iranian woman that traveled, the Iranian woman, oh, the Iranian woman. Meanwhile, Patrick Bet David of Valuetainment is doing so well with his right-wing buddies, and he's Iranian, so you can be Iranian and be right-wing and be treated fairly. But yeah, get ready for Iranians to be treated as the new boogeyman. They already have been for years, especially in pro wrestling, which I mentioned before, and featured in the 2008-2009 movie with Mickey Rourke, The Wrestler, where he's wrestling the Ayatollah. They embedded all of this and these world events that occurred, including whatever happened with Iran in 1979. It's all been embedded in our generation's psyche for a long time, preceding the 9/11 event, with movies worth world events. When I speak of my generation, this generation, I'm speaking now in a tone that includes the parents' generation, not just my generation. It's your generation, my generation. We're not going to play that stupid-ass song, but we will play music on my Spotify playlist, podcast. The playlists are on the front page of my channel, and for years those playlists were not there. Why were they not there, Alex? Because I didn't want to be bothered. Just want to be left alone. Shh, 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 shh. Comments off. Shh, leave me alone. Leave me alone. Shh. That's it. Out of the pool. Okay, you want to keep going? I'm deleting the whole Facebook group. You want to do that? Shouldn't have done that. Should have just privated the Facebook group. But see, breaks from the internet are good. Breaks from coffee is good. Breaks from marijuana is good. Breaks from alcohol is good. But then, of course, going back to coffee is also great. Going back to marijuana, and I'd say a combination of the CBD and the THC, a little 1-1, a little 2-1 action. Awesome. Reading some books and taking a break from some books. Reading some, watching good movies, and taking a break from those movies. Going on a certain path in your town and then going on a new path. So speaking of which, it is now 2024, and we need to embark on a new path. Either we're going to be in control of the steering wheel of our own life, or they, the unseen forces, the power elite, the evil spirits of this world, this planet, that are stuck here. But we're not stuck here. But for now, they're stuck here. So either we're going to be in control of our own lives, or they're going to be manipulating and influencing our lives. Okay, we're not alone in this reality. So you got the fake news web that leads people to Q, to the fake alien invasion videos, to the political worship, to the hate of people that don't look like us, to co-opting 9/11 truth for their own agenda. And then you have the polarity, caring about innocent people, regardless of the fact that they may be of a different religion, and speaking for them, and using your influence, and maybe a little bit of power, if, say, there's somebody in the audience that has a little bit of power. to encourage people to stop participating in the genocide and those that support the genocide. And in that case, you have both Democrats and Republicans historically. It's not just bombs dropped. It's not just the supposed wars that are launched. Donald Trump did not launch certain new wars, but he did drop bombs. He did throw missiles in the direction of Syria. And he did continue to engage in rhetoric that his critics and anyone protesting him is basically the enemy of America. And I've said for years that Antifa, in many cases, have shown their fascist nature themselves through their attack on minority-owned businesses, through their attack on journalists, especially on people that I've known, people that I wouldn't say have been my friends, but maybe some people that have watched my channel that have maybe known people that I've known. People that I've known have known people like the Laughing at Liberals guy who pulled out, like I'm not friends with Mike Bluehair again, but he recorded the video where Laughing at Liberals YouTube channel pulled out a gun when he was surrounded by and nearly assaulted by violent Black Lives Matter, borderline gang members, to be frank. You can watch that video. I have, that's on Mike's channel. That's from 2014. So, a lot of people on the left and the right, the extreme sides, as opposed to maybe the more moderate people that are more peaceful with their politics. These people that take action in the streets don't realize that nothing that they do is ever going to equate to winning. Winning is just going to add more problems. It's going to create more violence. It's going to be bad for everybody. Hey, you know what happened to those guys in Portland, Oregon that were considered heroes, some of them to the right wing, like Tiny? Tiny, I think, is looking at 10 years in prison. And to be honest with you, I never liked that guy. But I don't necessarily agree with the prison industrial complex, and that's another podcast for another time, how maybe corrections could be reformed along with public education. In my longer 2-hour video on Good Men Need to Reform Society, I touched upon some of the ideas and beliefs that I already have regarding prison, public education, the school system, and I made some suggestions that certain things should be taught in public school to prevent some kids from getting involved in gangs, drugs, and warning them about some of the pitfalls in life. But public education is co-opted, and there's a lot of people out there, like my father, although I'd like to honor him, although it's difficult when there's aspects of him that are corrupt, and it's difficult to connect with him before he leaves this planet. I'm trying to connect with my father before he dies, and maybe earn his respect, and it's not happening. But he looks at me like I have no education, when in reality I actually did spend over 5 years in community college. So no education wouldn't exactly be factual. What would be factual is I didn't end up with a big money making career. Money is not my God. You know, remember that scene from They Live when he puts on the sunglasses? In fact, I'm going to put on my blue light glasses right now, protect myself from the mind control rays of my computer screen. But yeah, he puts on the glasses and he looks down at the money. This is your God. Money is something that we need, but money is not something that should be our God. And money and status are related. The more views that someone has, the more money they're going to make. So a lot of people do whatever is necessary on the internet in order to get views. There's also the false assumption that everybody on the internet is out there trying to become an internet star or do things for views, or that all views are bad. Sometimes more views are necessary to get the word out. Okay, so for example, I want to make a documentary about solar flares. Don't know if I'm going to, but at the very least, I will do my best within the next few months, at least I hope so, to create at least a mashup. It'll be a new mashup edited Okay, I will do it. There will be at least a version. I will do it. But then maybe there'll be better versions after that will basically put out my most important info on the sun. Anyway, it needs to be seen by people so that they can learn from it. And I'm going to put a lot of time and work into production. It's not going to be a podcast with the image of my face. It's going to be a lot of documentation, and some of the 2013 slides that you've already seen will be brought back with select portions of them added in, right? There'll be a special focus on Alexander Chizesky, and as much information that I can find on the guy. Anything new that I haven't mentioned about the guy that I can share. And then maybe some other information and a special section on 2025. You know, I heard myself making fun of the 2025 plan. That was an accident. I didn't know that I said that back in 2007. So yes, like I did say many times, for years I've mentioned these articles that I've seen from the Rand Corporation and others that I can't recall that talked about futuristic wars by 2025 over resources, resource depletion. Okay. And you hear me mention that later on as I kind of talk over the Clyde Lewis podcast. You know, on that note, we're going to go to that because there's a lot of commentary. I said a lot here, but echoing again what I said before, this is a time of prayer, not only for ourselves, you know, but for family and for people around the world. You know, pay attention to how some of the people are posting on Twitter and how it verifies what I've been saying and what I've been predicting, that a lot of people are going to end up possessed. And after the October 7th event, something dark activated, potentially from this false flag, launched after the eclipse that has activated the demonic psyche in a number of human beings that are now calling for Palestine to be destroyed, for a nuke to be dropped on Palestine, for there to be a genocide in Palestine. And mark my words, if this happens and the U.S. is involved in it, the world will turn against the U.S. and this will be by design. And this will be in line with my predictions and warnings for over 15 to 20 years. Okay, now let's listen to the first part of the Clyde Lewis Show. There's a lot of truth and entertainment in the Clyde Lewis Show. Okay, I have my criticisms. I'm not really going to say them all here. And there's more that you don't know about me and Clyde and some of the reasons why things didn't turn out so good between us. Frankly, Clyde did something nasty to me years ago when I confronted Antifa and made me look like the bad guy. That's a story that I'm going to tell. And I don't think that's fair what happened to me, that I was made to be the bad guy on Clyde Lewis's radio show when I exposed Antifa and called them agent provocateurs in 2010. I was a man before my time, as I am a man before my time now, just to remind you. So no one supported me in 2010, although Alex Jones did put my report on his Prison Planet website. Then Clyde Lewis said, well, Alex Jones is white trash. That's just because Alex Jones wasn't his buddy then and was looking at me. Fast forward, Clyde Lewis and Alex Jones are doing a joint recording or show in 2018. They go on each other's show. Well, by 2018, Alex Jones had already engaged in the new Alex Jones behavior, which I specified in my multiple series on him, and why I stopped becoming his number one fan. As back in the day, I used to hand out his DVDs, used to talk about him on the air and play his clips on my show. The Alex Jones Show, from behind enemy lines. There are many enemy lines in the U.S., and I said many years that there should be many Alex Joneses around the world in different languages, when I saw him in a different light, with that same passion. He said himself that people should start their own access show, TV show. Right? And then he changed, and he didn't want to lift people up anymore. And people with their own opinions on the conspiracy became the enemy. Doing a little Alex Jones impersonation here, although it's a little early in the morning. You are my enemy. You know that same, like when he goes into like demon jail. You are my enemy. Well, you know what, Jones? The feeling, brother, is mutual. Back in the day, man, I thought he was a brother from another mother. Like, seriously, we were bros, man. I gotta go down and meet you. I was just so starstruck. Anyway, I don't want to pollute the content of this podcast. Clyde and Alex obviously hit it off. And I think that Clyde, in some ways, has drifted a great deal to the right. And when you're on the air 3 hours a night, 4 hours a night, and it's about keeping the asses in the seat and keeping people listening, okay, you're going to tell people what they want to hear. I don't know what's inside Clyde's mind, but I do know that back in the day, Clyde talked about false flags. Clyde talked about Operation Blackjack, a comic book strip featured in the London Guardian that featured Muslim attacks in the U.S., likely false flags, dirty bomb attacks that led to attacks on Syria, Iran, and China, essentially World War III. Is he still discussing the false flags? Does he really discuss the sun's influence? There's discussion about war and Alexa predictions of November 2023, but is that really doing a deep dive into what is happening geopolitically? Or is that taking some viral TikTok video, talking about his show he did back in February before I came on the internet, listening to that terrifying broadcast as I walk with my MP3 player in the snow? Hearing this podcast about November 2023, a time that we have passed. Yeah, then there's a guy, Jared. Jared and I hung out in Las Vegas when I went to Vegas to visit someone on the way to San Diego, and we hit it off. He was doing some Uber driving. He told me the other day over Facebook that he'd been listening to Clyde Lewis and he had a lot of anxiety over it. So, I don't want to air strong criticisms of Clyde right now because I'm open to patching things up. But I've had some criticisms with regarding the content and how I perceive the effect that it has on the psyche, because I know the effect that some of this content has had on me. How do you think I feel, folks? We're going to go to the content now. Last statements. How do you think I feel, folks? Tuning in and hearing more and more of the same about terrorists coming across the border, the illegal immigrant takeover, and most of the narration having a right-wing bias. Something that could perfectly be put on the Alex Jones show or on Fox News. The Clyde Lewis that I knew back in the day, that I had a few dinners with, that I looked up to, like I looked up to Alex Jones, right? As far as I'm concerned, went deeper into the truth. He went off into some other areas that I disagreed with and playing paranormal, spooky sounds, which I think can even cord human beings to entities. I think there's certain things that are just reckless, but those are just my opinions and my soul speaking. Forgive me for being human. But like Alex Jones and like others in 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005, there was much more of an awareness regarding people that are harmed by the New World Order that are outside the United States. There was much more of a message of compassion. At least that's what they felt like doing at the time. Even Alex Jones himself filmed himself torturing an iPod, saying that the American people will have feelings for an iPod, but they won't have feelings for the Iraqis and the Afghanis that they are torturing. And I'm also going to say finally that a lot of people talk about the bombing in Yemen or Iraq or Syria or Libya or some other place. And it's like they're under mind control by not mentioning Afghanistan. Finally, I'm not a fan of what's been done to these foreign countries, but some people didn't know any better. Some veterans didn't know any better, and they were misled into this. So I'm totally open to the idea that there are some good people out there that have served. And I'd like to meet more of them in the future and to know them. And to hear about their spiritual growth. Because it doesn't matter whether you're at one level of the military or not, whether you're actually fighting or not, or whether you're working a office role or auxiliary role or a translation role or a number of roles. Whatever the military is being used for is very, very demonic. As far as I'm concerned, like they're co-opting souls as far as this mass recruitment and maybe even through a potential draft in the future if we have World War III. But if you're drafted like with Vietnam, I don't necessarily see all the soldiers as co-opted. But as far as recent wars, there's like a light side and a dark side to the military. And by them allowing negative things to happen and war crimes to happen, they've actually hurt the military and the image of the military and the reputation of the Marine. It's kind of like there are certain things out there that could fit into an anti-white category, but they're not being created by Muslims or immigrants. They're coming from your mainstream media that's not controlled by Muslims, but controlled by others. So a lot of people, they go on and on and on and on and on about immigrants and other people. But when it comes to your banking system, when it comes to the propaganda, when it comes to the violent pornography, when it comes to the Netflix mind control, when it comes to the weapon sales, when it comes to radical Islamic groups being armed around the group and having alliances with the U.S. government or the Chinese government, right? Like, so we live in a world where they don't want people thinking about these connections, about the real new world order. They want people in a nationalistic mindset, because then they're easier to control. You can care about your nation, care about your borders, care about your people without leaning into extremism. You can. It has been done throughout history. So I'm here to warn you. Okay? Because if you think you've seen the last of these Pied Pipers trying to activate your emotions and get you riled up when you're already going to be feeling increasingly anxious from the eclipse that's incoming. How many people, Clyde, Alex Jones, George Norrie, or others, although George Norrie would be on it. But how many people out there are educating their audience about how we are affected by these solar flares and eclipses? Now I'm going to say this. If I had a nickel for every time, not literally, but it's getting to that. So this is what I have to say. Why don't you tell Ben of Suspicious Observers for once about Alex Ansary and actually send him a link? I already know about him. Guys, I researched the Sun. Of course I know who Ben is. You need to know something. None of these dudes give a flying rat's ass about me. Okay? I'm a man. I do my own research. I already know what Ben's about. I already know what he covers. And I know what he doesn't cover. Same thing with other websites that I've mentioned before. And some of these dudes resent me for some reason. And I find that to be suspicious. So for those of you that are consumers of this content, that are on the outside looking in, it seems like we should all be kumbaya. Me, Clyde, Alex Jones, Ben of Suspicious Observers. But it's not like that. For reasons that a lot of you guys don't understand because you haven't walked in my shoes, a lot of these dudes have a bias against me. And it has to do for a number of reasons. And it includes my information. With that, let's go to Clyde Lewis's show, at least a segment of it, from last night, January 27th, 2024, playing the video stream, recording the audio from his video stream that played from his Twitter account. That is Ground Zero Radio over at X, right? Yeah, that is a little website of the Antichrist, Elon Musk, breeding new street violence in which Elon Musk could stop that violence, getting back to that if he wanted to, with his AI algorithm, but he's not. Meaning Elon Musk is intentionally showing you grotesque violence, targeting all groups, including your group, and insane violent attacks. Like, it's good that I'm aware of what the Hindus are doing to the Muslims in India. And if you haven't seen the video, watch it on my channel. They're trying to light this guy's nuts on fire. Seriously, that's satanic. These Hindu extremists are possessed by Shaitan, by the devil, over in India. Let's go to that clip with Clyde. Now, having shared some of my criticisms regarding aspects of the show, Clyde does say a lot of intelligent and important things as well. So my advice is to use discernment. And because he does say some important things, that's why I'm sharing this clip with you. But it's also highlighting, a term that he would use as well, the zeitgeist. And the zeitgeist, for better or for worse, I'm suggesting there could be suspected mind control over even the conspiracy research community, even if people mean well, to have all their focus on this perceived invasion while looking away from the larger superstate nation invasion that a lot of them, I suspect, and I've been speculating, a lot of them are sleepwalking into. Okay? So the event that they're looking at and talking about, right, it's good that they're aware and it is relevant, it is serious, It is not the event of events that is coming. Okay. There is an argument to be made that this border situation does provide itself to be somewhat of a distraction from other things. And they, the powers that be, those that control the government and Border Patrol, they control the flow of immigration. Including, by the way, whether or not the states and the federal government are going to stage a fight. Are they staging a fight? Is this also part of a show? We'll come back with more speculation and looking more into this. But now, here's Clyde Lewis with Ground Zero Radio. I'm Clyde Lewis. Actually, no, I'm Alex. Here we go.
Also, there was the civil disturbance readiness conditions training that was going on during the Bush administration. Operation Garden Plot would be used at any time that the president felt that there's civil disturbances or threats going on, and he would use all branches of the military, and all resources would be put into use if needed, including weapons, air support, and detention centers. So this also included people who protested the tax protesters, what they call violent religious groups, gun rights activists, militias, anti-war protesters, homeschoolers, any other general anti-government nonconformist groups could be placed in these camps. Operation Garden Plot called for the use of deadly force, and the detention centers do exist. In fact, some of them were used for Katrina, but to use them for the immigrants, to use them for perhaps soldiers or those fighting with the government at the border, this is something that's been planned for some time. And if you put on your conspiracy goggles and go back and do your research, you'll see that I'm correct about this. In fact, I wrote an article, many articles, for the Idaho Observer with regard to how the Constitution would be thrown out if we were under martial law. And believe me, I can sense this. I can feel it, how close we are right now with what's going on the border. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. Let's go to Glenn in New Hampshire. Hi, Glenn. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde. Essentially, I think the media, of course, is all globalist owned and run. And I think they are using the media as a push-pull to steer people into these different frenzies, using news to divide everybody.
Well, the media is not even talking about this. They don't even think there's a border problem.
I know.
They don't think there's a border problem.
Division is how they're getting away with doing all this to this country.
Mm-hmm.
And they've been dividing people forever.
Sure.
And their power is division.
Mm-hmm.
Basically cloud pivot.
Mm-hmm.
And we've fallen into the trap of listening to the media every night, and that's how they've done what they've done to this nation.
Right. The media has been doing this. Yes, the media has been doing this for some time, but the media should take responsibility and say, how is this affecting us, rather than getting behind it because it's a political thing. This is affecting us in a bad way, and it's going to affect us even worse because it seems that the numbers are off the charts with regards to who's crossing. And the idea that a governor wants to protect his state, and immediately he becomes insensitive and he becomes a racist because he wants to protect his state. Yeah, I mean, and now we have 25 states that are backing him. Oh, but they're MAGA states, and of course Donald Trump wants them to surge as well. So again, he's getting behind another insurrection. This isn't an insurrection. Again, it's a constitutional checkup. That's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We are being invaded, and we have been invaded for umpteen years now.
Yeah.
And the border wall was funded how many times, and then nothing ever happened. They never ever built the border wall. The Congress would pass a bill, and nothing ever happened. It's because the globalists have been running this country for decades.
Well, again, you're right. Again, we have the globalists that are saying if we could just get America to go under martial law, then we can come in and bring our own troops to correct everything. The blue helmets are not a myth. They can be brought in at any time.
They might already be here.
They might. I haven't been to the border, but certainly sounds like everybody's gathering there. I appreciate the call. Let's go to Dave. Hi, Dave. You're on Ground Zero.
Hey, Clyde.
Hey.
They don't need the UN. What did you say it was like since 2021? 8 million. illegals.
That's just for San Diego. I haven't talked about Texas yet.
Oh, okay. Well, let's just assume for the sake of the entire country, we're talking about 10 million, right? And so you've got 25 states that are supporting Abbott, and Trump is saying, hey, this is a great idea. Abbott should, do what he needs to do and support him, blah, blah, blah. So they charge him with a second insurrection. So then Biden declares martial law, like you were talking about earlier. And if we even get to an election in November, Biden and his cronies say, well, the votes from the red states are invalidated because they're insurrectionists. And then, and when I say Biden, I don't mean Biden because, he doesn't know what day it is. He's, more worried about creeping on young girls and having ice cream. But his people say, hey, we'll take those 8, 7, whatever million illegals, military-age men, and say, join the military, automatic citizenship, and use them to fight against the red states because they have no skin in the game with these red states. They don't care, and they don't need the UN.
Well, that's why I'm saying. I mean, as a last resort. I mean, usually when we hear of civil wars in the Middle East, we go in and we fight, or we bring the UN in to fight, or if NATO decides that something isn't quite right with Russia, we all make the decision that when there's some sort of a civil war or something that needs our little finesse of martial law, we move in on it. Well, nobody's thinking about America and how that could happen here, and it can happen here.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's already being foretold in movies and books.
Right, absolutely. And they've got the truckers convoy that's going to be going along California through Arizona and things like that, and to protest the border. And I suspect that Biden and the DOJ and the IRS are going to do the same thing to them.
Well, I was
Trudeau and his cronies did to the truckers up in Canada.
Well, I was just reading an article, and I got to look for it now because now you've jarred my memory. Apparently, part of that convoy that's going to the border are calling themselves the Army of God.
Yeah,
and that has raised a lot of red flags. For of course the media is saying, oh, it's the Army of God, and they're saying that this is their point in time, the rapture.
Assalamu alaikum.
Yeah, exactly. They're basically turning this into some sort of a religious ritual. That they're afraid that this could get even worse because now these guys think that this is a signal of pre-rapture or something, and they're going to go in and they're going to fight to the last man. I got to find this. It's an amazing article.
You were talking about the different people that are coming across the border, and there was an article the other day. Well, maybe it was a few days ago. I think the reporter's name was Ben Berquam, but he went down on the border and he was talking to this guy, and this guy was really arrogant. He was really entitled, and he was telling this guy, "You don't know who I am. You should know who I am, but you don't. But you will."
Yeah.
And they matched photos, and it turns out this guy is some radical terrorist from Azerbaijan, and that's just one.
Yeah, and imagine how many more, and how many more they detained in the north. Chinese nationals that they detained in the north border, and Canada's a lot more strict with their borders than we are with ours in the southern border. So yeah, I mean this is turning into something that I don't know. This is turning into something that would be akin to maybe. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't say this. I was thinking maybe Tiananmen Square or something that could turn into tanks ready to charge the borders if necessary, or certain types of soldiers and militias, and it's just a mess. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. I'm sure you have an opinion on this, whether you stick with Texas or not, whether you think this is going to evolve into maybe a civil war at the border. We'd love to hear from you. 503-225-0860. We'll be back.
Anywho, I left Clyde a couple comments there, basically noting that the solar cycle around the time of 9/11 was strong, and then we saw the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq. Here we are 23 years later. People are talking about civil war, and as I said, I have felt years ago if there'd be an event at the southern border Okay.
If you haven't switched to MetaShare yet, two big reasons to
But with China owning land down there, are they going to be involved in this?
Number one's inflation.
What's going to be going on with that?
Everything. It makes sense to say, okay, where can I actually save?
Yeah, we'll come back to the
save
story.
a lot in one.
Peggy, you're on Ground Zero.
Hi, Clyde. My comment is very simple. I'm 68 years old. I'll be 69 in a month and a half. And I would do anything to support these states that are fighting this immigrant crisis. I would go to Texas and help hand out, I don't know, but I would fight.
You would do whatever necessary.
Right. I would fight with every last breath I have.
And why's that?
Because I feel that Biden has done nothing but dug a hole for this country and just shoved us in a grave. And I just feel that nothing is being done to stop him from the abuses that he has been making.
Right.
The money for Ukraine, I can't even think of them all right this moment. But
right.
I just feel that we have to do something to stop this. And I don't have a problem with somebody coming into our country the legal way. I have a problem with all these immigrants coming over and expecting to get things. You know, these immigrants are getting benefits that our own soldiers can't get.
I understand that, yes.
That just infuriates me.
So you're going to stand with Texas?
Yes, definitely. 200%.
Now, what happens if the liberal governments decide to go after the conservative governments that want to side with Texas? What would we do then? How would you feel about that?
I would fight.
Okay.
I would fight. I would if I have to go to Texas with my car, some clothes, and my cat. I'll go to Texas.
Wow. You're a real patriot. I appreciate your call.
Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
68 years old. She said she'd pack her clothes and her cat, go to Texas and fight because she stands with Texas. This is a very, very, very important time in history. It's a very, very, very effective and important call that just came into the program tonight. I'd like to hear more from you tonight because this is a very important topic. I know that the mainstream media is waiting to, they're just holding back on this because they want to find an angle, but the angle is simple. Either we do something about the border or we may have a civil war in the process. Already we've had one caller say that she would go to Texas and fight. 68-year-old woman go to Texas and fight. 503-225-0860. That's 503-225-0860. I'm Clyde Lewis. You're listening to Ground Zero, and we'll be back.
Single day, we've got to kill and confront that movement.
Look, the border is at the boiling point, and I think you're seeing a movement across the nation now. Governor Abbott, supported by 25 other governors. This is a constitutional standoff.
Recon out!
Citizens of America, the so-called Western forces of Texas and California have suffered a very grave defeat.
Rifle 1-1 on approach. Multiple targets.
Too much of what's happening in our country today is not normal. Republicans represented extremism.
They travel nearly 7,000 miles to gain experience so they can one day protect and serve their communities. And League City's police department was happy to be a part of the lesson. 16 cadets from China's Zhejiang Police Academy are here in the United States attending Sam Houston State University. As a part of their training, they must undergo 3 years of classroom study and a 1-year internship. That internship.
I'm Clyde Lewis. You are listening to Ground Zero. The numbers to call tonight, 503-225-0860. We are edging closer to a civil upheaval in the borders. Maybe civil war, who knows? But tonight we're asking the question, do you stand with Texas? Do you stand with the 25 other states that are supporting Governor Abbott? And what do you think about the border policy? And those are some questions we're asking tonight. 503-225-0860. Let's go to Janice, Louisiana. Hey, Janice, you're on Ground Zero.
Hello, Clyde. Listen, there are a lot of things here that people just don't get. They really don't understand, Clyde, but I do, and I stand with Texas. I certainly do. Now, on the northern border, recently, there was a guy that came through. Well, it turned out that he was an Iranian, and he had terrorist ties. Now, a couple of years ago, a man came through, and he got sent back, and he came in and sent back several different times from Guatemala. The last time he came in, he made his way all the way to Kenner, Louisiana. And because of that, there's a dead woman right now. He killed a lady. Now, just recently, a mom and her son were killed. An El Salvadorian. He was a drunk driver. And he was driving a car, most probably, and, I have no license or nothing. But anyway, he was drunk, and he killed the mother and her son. And I heard that there was a teenage girl recently who was raped and murdered at the hands of an illegal. People, let me explain something to anybody out there that doesn't get a grasp on this. Put politics aside. Please do. This is not political. And I'm learning some things from Clyde tonight that I wasn't thinking about before. And this man is right. He really is. But when Mr. Abbott stands up for Texas, he's not just standing up for Texas. He is standing up for the United States of America. Mm-hmm. All 50 states. How would you feel if one of your loved ones got hit by that drunk driver and was killed? And think about this. It could even be you.
That's right. And what about the idea that, I don't think Americans are even ready. I don't think they understand what a civil war would be like. I think they don't understand that they'd be going back their day, they'd be going about their business, they'd be doing everything they normally do, only though that they'd have to listen to the news every day to find out cartel has taken over. I mean, this is what we could be hearing about in the future. Yeah. Think about it. Mm-hmm. I mean, Absolutely. We go about our day. I mean, they do it in Israel.
You're right, Clyde.
I mean, they do it in Israel. In Israel, a bomb goes off in Tel Aviv, goes off in a mall. Number of people are killed at the mall. They have it cleaned up and taken care of within hours, and people are back to shopping again. They're used to the idea of being bombed. Other countries are used to civil wars happening all the time. They go to work every day. They take care of their business. And every once in a while, they hear that there's a mass shooting going on just down the street from where they live. They have to stay in their homes. They can't go out to dinner. They can't go out and do the things they want to do. So they're stuck at home, and they have to eat what they have in the house. That's what happened with the snowstorms that came through. The snowstorms were an example of no internet, no power, no heat, 13-degree temperatures. Yeah. Well, that can happen again, this time, though, with a group of people with machine guns going into substations and just shooting them up to make sure that people have no power.
So that's a sample of the Ground Zero show. It starts off kind of interesting, discussing camps and for migrants, which I'm concerned about. And then it goes in more of a typical direction that's very partisan politics, which is where most people are. The vast majority of mainstream conspiracy theorists, including many hosts, really think that their shit doesn't stink and that they have everything figured out. No, they don't have jack shit figured out. if they think that there's a savior in this. I'm not going to stop, folks. If you don't like it, tough. I don't believe in any political saviors. I believe that we are the ones that we've been waiting for. That we are the ones that we need to make the improvements in our local community, in our lives. And there's a lot of ways that we can cooperate and get information out on the internet. But people today aren't very friendly. And they're at each other's throats. And a lot of people are under mind control, especially those that are into politics on the far left and right. And a lot of these people think that they are super fucking heroes. Superheroes on the left and the right. They literally wear superhero outfits, folks. Pay attention. On the left and the right. Superhero outfits. You're not a superhero if you're falling into this. But a lot of people that don't know any better, that haven't read the right books, that haven't done the proper deprogramming from the New World Order's media globally, they fall into these camps. And that includes the radical Muslims that will be responding to the violence in India and other places with like violence. But there's actually a lot of Muslims, believe it or not, that have turned the other cheek. There's constantly people saying, now look at all that's being done, including people who I like, whose content, who I like Gypsy Fox on BitChute. Then he puts out that video, 2 months ago. Albert Pike, the Freemason, said this about the future. So fucking what? He's not God. He said this, he said that. Just because people like that and other Freemasons and other servants of Lucifer attempt to get certain agendas across doesn't mean that everybody in certain religions are serving that Luciferian agenda. Okay? That's demonizing a whole group of people. What is Clyde doing? What is Clyde saying about innocent people that could be caught up in the event? What is Clyde doing? What is Clyde saying about the false flags? There's a reason why I don't listen to his show on a regular basis. If somebody says to me, like a friend of mine, an old girlfriend of mine, more like an old fling, I listen to Clyde Lewis because he helps me stay sane. That bothered me. But being an old girlfriend, I'll be honest with you, it was a challenge as a man to get back in the ring and give her another option. To have this old fling of mine, a woman that I loved, listening to Clyde Lewis for direction on what is taking place, when at one point I loved her. No, I'm going to ask you to subscribe to the Substack. And that was a year ago. Some time passed till I was ready. And now I'm back in the ring, metaphorically speaking. By the way, some off-topic commentary. There may be a Chinese Hercules Bolo Young documentary, so I am looking forward to that. There's also going to be a Von Erich movie about the wrestlers. That is something that looks like it's going to be interesting also. Although I'm not into modern professional wrestling, but the old school stuff is interesting. The bread and circus of our modern day and age. And the types of propaganda that you can find within it is always interesting. I told myself that I wasn't going to record for a few days. Sometimes I feel like I'm uploading too much for the audience. If you do like these uploads on a regular basis, even daily, feel free to let me know. But yeah, these uploads will continue. But I always try to make attempts to pull back because I'm trying to launch into a new writing project and also get some reading done. I'm actually delaying my first cup of coffee of the morning because I think that it's a good day to take my laptop, grab a cup of coffee, grab a book, and get out of the house and go out. Maybe I'll record another video when I'm out and about. But yeah, the website is alexansary.substack.com. Make sure you subscribe to it, and there will be additional content coming your way. Have a good day.
Listen. Bin Laden didn't blow up the projects. It was you, nigga. Tell the truth.